Thanks for tuning in to the JOAT podcast with Deuce Madden, Cousin P, and Louis Joe. Good morning, P. What's going on?
Man, it's an early one. Got my coffee.
Yeah, I think this is the first time you didn't drink coffee on here.
I feel a little professional this morning.
Yep, so it's us two this morning, Deuce Madden, he with us. He just he had a late start this morning. But we're gonna keep it rocking, So today's guest is a community servant. There's several people in the community that without them certain things wouldn't go on, And this is another segment of the Hometown Hero. We hadn't shot a Hometown Hero since the first episode with Mr. Linwood, right. And I feel pretty confident that this is a good follow up with the Hometown Hero segment.
Definitely is.
And we're talking someone of over 40 years of giving themselves to a community, and not only to the community as an emergency medical service member, but also volunteer service. From kids pee-wee baseball, football, volunteer service throughout the community, and several obligations within the Christian community in Dumas, Arkansas.
Definitely got to be a selfless person, a compassionate person, down to earth, person that care about the people outside of monetization to do things that this guest today has done over his career.
Yeah, and this is a period of years. I know when I was a kid, I remember seeing him. He drove the black Ford F-150.
Right. Yeah.
The black Ford F-150, and not only in that personal environment, but also in that professional environment. Anytime I seen an ambulance or anything, I always looking to see if Mr. Rick was up in there.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, tradesman, we want to introduce to you Mr. Rick Helton. What's going on, Mr. Rick?
Hey, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Wow, I'm humbled and I'm glad to be here. And I love what y'all do with your podcast. It's pretty awesome. And following up Linwood, that's pretty humbling as well. I enjoyed his story. But, there's a lot of people in this town that contribute back and give back, not only professionally, but as volunteers as well, a lot of us. And but that's what keeps a city like Dumas going. Everybody has to pitch in, and you can't just go to work and go home. You have to do things for the community above and beyond. And I've been humbled and honored and privileged to be a part of Dumas my entire life, and it's been awesome. And man, everything I've ever done in this town, it hadn't been a lot. I've helped a lot of people out, but a lot of people have helped me as well. But I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of a city like Dumas.
That's amazing. So, Mr. Rick, are you from Dumas, born and raised?
Absolutely. I was born and raised in Dumas, and I went to school here and graduated from Dumas High School back in 1980. And I was pretty, I just didn't make a lot of racket in high school. I was very kind of shy and didn't talk a lot. My wife still don't believe that, but that is a true story.
Wow.
Yeah, I was, as a matter of fact, I got in the drama club to try to get myself out of a shell, and it was a failure. I was terrible. I couldn't speak in front of people, and I just didn't want to be around crowds, and I don't know what happened, but that kind of changed. But yeah, I graduated from Dumas High School, and the joke was, I always planned to do like a lot of my friends and get out of college and leave, and here I am. Haven't done it yet, so I guess I'm probably just going to stay.
What grade did you end up getting in drama?
Hey, I got out of there with a C, and I was proud of it. Hey, give me my C, and I mumbled, I fumbled and mumbled through a speech that got me a pretty good grade and got me out of there. So that's the best C I ever got. Yeah. So I wish I could go back now. I could probably get me a B+. Because I like to talk.
Yeah.
And so, I spoke earlier during the introduction of being an emergency medical service member, uniform member. So what did you do right after high school?
Well, I graduated high school, and I had no direction really in my life. I worked in a grocery store, had a job, had a new truck, and I always had a pickup truck, man. I always had me an F-150. But I really didn't have any direction and wasn't looking for any. And it was in the summer of the year I graduated, and I was at my girlfriend's house, and her neighbor happened to be Mr. Bill Morris, who's still around Dumas today as well. He was the auto mechanics teacher at high school, but he came over and he said, "Hey, I'm having a summer EMT class and I need a couple more students and it's on Monday night and I need you to come." And I said, "All right, I'm off Monday. I'll be there." I really didn't know what an EMT was. Now you got to think, the industry then had only really gotten organized in the mid 70s. This was 1980.
Oh,
and
wow.
So
you're still in the preliminary.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know what it was. And living in Dumas, and I lived out on Cypress Creek, so we were able to get channel 7, 11, and 2. So we didn't no media. So I had no idea what an EMT or a paramedic was. I really didn't. I had heard the term, but that was something that didn't exist around where we were. And so I went to the class not really knowing what to expect. I thought maybe it may be working on a car or something, but I was wrong about that.
Wow.
But I went to the class and I was intrigued. And so that started my career right there. Curiosity got me into EMS. And I had, like I said, I had no media. I had no way to know really what it was all about. Dumas did not have a real organized ambulance service. The police department was actually running the ambulance service back then, and just with whoever they could get and stick on there. So it was beginning to get organized, and I was in on me and some more folks as well, on the very ground floor of EMS in Dumas. And to see where it's at now, that was awesome. But I always tell a little story, small towns like this, back in the day, basically there was one vehicle in a town like this that you could take a sick person laying down. The only vehicle designed for that, besides the back of a pickup truck, was the hearse.
Wow.
So the undertaker would go to the car wreck and put the person in the back of his hearse, and he would go to town, and when he would get to the stop sign, he would look back there. If the person was alive, he'd take a left and go to the hospital. If he was dead, he'd take a right and go to the funeral home. So EMS, I must say, has come a long ways since then. So,
wow.
But I was there, and that's what makes it so unique to me, is I've seen the progression and the changes, and some amazing changes in EMS. And someone's asked me before, how long is paramedic school? And you never get out, obviously, because every other year there's so many different meds, drugs, and equipment that comes down the pipe. We have to stay up on that. So it's 40, 50, 60 hours every year to keep your license for the rest of your career. So it's an evolving career. So, but it's an amazing industry, and I'm proud to have been from the beginning, and I'm getting up here now, close to the end for my career.
So was that when he asked you to come to the EMS class? Was that like your first dealings with like blood and everything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I remember going to the doctor. I was in junior high, and I had to get a shot. The flu or whatever, and I was just that just devastated me, getting a needle stuck in me. I thought, man, I would never do that to anybody. That's cruel. Well, I was wrong about that. But yeah, that was my first experience with anything like that. I didn't go to hospitals. I nothing. I had no medical training or no medical history in my life as far as that kind of stuff, and didn't want it, didn't care. But man, it seems like sometimes you get into something and you're home. And the first night of that class, I knew I would be back. And so I showed up with my $52 in hand, cash, $52 to go through that program. And it is not $52 anymore. But I showed up, and I couldn't wait to get back to class. And I was working at the grocery store, but I was looking forward to Monday nights. And I was ready to get myself back in that EMT class and learn more about what this industry was all about. The students today usually get into the program from word of mouth, or they see stuff on TV or other people that's in the business, but we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea, and that was so unique to that area and that time period. And but we a bunch of us stuck it out, and I'm one of the few left out of that original class. But
wow.
Man, what a career it's been for me, no doubt.
And so, go ahead, Pete.
No, I was gonna say, you said the guy that hosted the class was your auto mechanics teacher, right?
Yeah.
So how was he capable, qualified to teach y'all?
Well, he somehow or another, and Mr. Bill Morris, like I said, he's still around today, and I'm in the deer camp with him. We're still friends, but he he had gotten wind, because he always liked to learn. He liked new things. And there was a program, I believe it was down in McGee at the Votech school. They were trying to get EMS established in some shape, form, or fashion in Arkansas, or in Southeast Arkansas. So he had a connection. He had someone that knew someone that knew someone, and they got him in that EMT class. So he actually went to an EMT class and became an EMT a year or so before our class. And so then the Department of Health and the ones in charge of the program needed to get more folks certified. So they made some of those guys in that class instructors. So he became a certified EMT instructor. And so I had no idea he was even doing that, but that's how he got qualified to teach. And so I was in his very first EMT class that he ever taught. So now, my instructor had been an EMT a whole year, so he was learning too.
And that's why you thought you was possibly going to work on some engines.
Yeah, shoot, yeah, he was a good auto mechanics teacher. I thought, hey, why not? I need to learn how to change oil in my car, whatever. So, yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty unique.
And so for the tradesmen, the audience that's watching, break down the difference between, because when you see someone in the ambulance, you automatically think that they're all the same people.
Right.
Yep.
But what is the organization of being an actual emergency medical service?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 3-tiered program. We are nationally registered, so there's a national registry United States wide that recognizes EMTs. EMT, we used to call them intermediates. Now they're advanced EMTs, and then paramedics. And the EMT is the entry level for EMS. And basically, when you see an ambulance now, the EMT will be driving. Their number one purpose is to safely operate the vehicle. And then they assist the paramedic with patient care, but the paramedic has to be in the back in these advanced life support ambulances with the patient. So the EMTs are assistants to the paramedic, and they're not allowed to do invasive treatment. They can't break the skin. They can't give IVs or meds or drugs like that. But they do have a lot of basic life-saving skills, and they're very skilled and very educated. And that's what we started out. We were a volunteer EMT service, and I remember it well. They had a little ambulance here in town. The police department was getting kind of tired of operating the ambulance, because they had their own big jobs to do. So when we got out of EMT school, some of the people in my class would work in the daytime because they had their own businesses. Then I would work at the grocery store and then take call at night. We had little pagers and stuff like that, and we would operate the ambulances as basics. And then later on, we became, and this is the progression of how we became a paramedic service in Dumas. But a few years rocked around, and the Department of Health decided that these rural areas needed a little more advanced care. So they sent us to an intermediate program, which was an advanced EMT, and that allowed us to do, basically we could start an IV on a trauma patient. And I remember becoming an intermediate, and we were still volunteer, and went to a car wreck, and I started an IV on this guy because I was working part-time at Pine Bluff. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But freaked everybody out. The dude started an IV on that guy because we'd never even considered doing that, but I had been doing it in Pine Bluff. And when I brought the patient in the hospital, it's like the doctor's like, who started this IV? And it was a big deal. I mean, it was like, well, now that's second. That's just what we do. So then the paramedic program now is it's the highest level of pre-hospital care in the United States, and I'm happy to say in the state of Arkansas we are, as a whole, are cutting edge as far as our training and our equipment, and it's a very intense program. Like I said, we never get out of school. I've got to go back in January for 2 solid weeks of classroom. Wow. And that's 8 and 10 hours a day for 2 weeks. So it'll be up in the 70 something hours, I believe. So we never get out of school because there's so many advances, and it happens. So you know how technology is. We use a lot of technology plus a lot of new drugs and meds, but the paramedic level is the highest level, and they provide the patient care in the back of the truck. And so we have the skills to do advanced surgical airways, IVs, IV fluids, and defibrillation, and just a host of pre-hospital care. it's like we bring the emergency room to the patient. We get there quick, and a lot of times someone will ask, "Why are you sitting in my driveway? Get my mother to the hospital." And that's a very legitimate question and a concern, and that's all about educating the public. And there's reasons for that. We're doing treatment now because we work understanding protocol. We do not have to have an order to treat our patient. We know what we can do. We know what the protocols say, and we treat them right then and there. We do not have to wait on orders. So we go ahead and stay there, and we get the treatment started. So when we get to the hospital, they don't start the treatment, they continue the treatment. So it's very important for EMS to educate the public, and I really try to do that. But it's been a great ride for me, no doubt. But when I started in EMT school, like I said, I had a full-time job. But in the back of my mind, I always thought, man, there's more to this. I want to do this for a living. And when we became intermediates, it really grew to the point that I thought, I've got to do this for a living. And I would mention that to some of my friends in Dumas, and they would just laugh it off like, "You're kidding, man. That's, you're not in Boston, or you're not in Los Angeles, you're in Dumas, Arkansas. Yeah. You're not going to be able to do it for a living here." And I felt like they were right. But then in the back of my mind, I always felt like, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm feeling called to this. And, but I got to tell you a story about how I became a paramedic. I was just working, just a regular job like everybody else, and had a couple little kids, no money, bills piled up, just typical young family. And I was at my friend's church up in Gravett, Arkansas, Ricky McElhannon, a man that grew up here, and we were real good friends. So we were up there on a weekend. And if you've ever, and whether people believe in this or not, doesn't matter. It's just what happened to me. So I'm not preaching here today, but I had an experience in his church, and it was just like one of you guys told me, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go home, you're going to quit your job, you're going to paramedic school, and you're going to be part of starting a full-time paramedic service in Dumas, Arkansas. Now, that was a ludicrous thought, and it was stuck in my mind to the point we were halfway home, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going home, this on Sunday evening. I said, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to Pine Bluff. I'm going to work for that ambulance service full time. While I'm working there as an EMT, driving the ambulances, I'm going to paramedic school. I'm going to become a paramedic, and we're going to start a paramedic service in Dumas, Arkansas. And she's sitting there like, "Oh, that's nice. Stop up here. I need a Coke." So
that's how that conversation went.
That's how that conversation went. She thought, well, he's a dreamer. That's a really cool dream, but whatever. Wow. But I came home, and I made a phone call, and just lo and behold, one of my wife's friends worked at this ambulance service in Pine Bluff, and they said, we need an EMT. Tell him to come up here. And I was friends with the man that owned the service, Ron Lusby. I had met him somewhere. Okay, yeah. And so
I know of him.
Yeah, Ron Lusby. And he hired me. And so I went to full-time EMS in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Now, I'm a full-time EMT. That was awesome. And I was so green. I had not a clue, because that was big boy stuff up there. I'm down here as a little volunteer, and I get up there, and it's run and gun, but that would make you or break you right there. And I knew right then, if I can get through 6 months of this, I'll know either I'm going back home or I'm going to stick it out.
If this is truly your call.
Yeah, and there was never, ever a doubt in my mind. I remember going on a call here in Dumas. We just wore street clothes and had these little jackets and had our little Star Life on it, and we were so proud. But I remember buying a pair of duty boots, a pair of blue BDUs, and I found me an EMS T-shirt somewhere with a Star Life on it, and I was in full uniform, and I did a call here in Dumas, and somebody made the comment. They said, "What are you trying to be, Mr. Professional EMT?" And that stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to be, and that's where I'm going to be, and that's where we're going to be in Dumas. And they're like, "I mean, come on, you're just trying to be professional and look good and all that." But in the back of my mind, that wasn't it. I was trying to be professional, absolutely, because that calling would not go away, and it was there. Couldn't shake it. Didn't want to shake it, and it's just stuck with me, And wow. But I remember when we were beginning to talk about a full-time paramedic service here in Dumas, one of the city leaders made a comment to me that also it was a profound comment, and I don't think this gentleman realized what he was saying, but he said, that's good for those big cities, but all that expensive equipment, and all that training, and all that paramedics, we don't need all that down here. We're just a small town. That's for those people in the big cities, and that just it was like a cold slap in the face. And I said, "No, wait a minute. I think we down here are not second-rate citizens. We need what everybody else has as far as health care. As a matter of fact, we need it worse. We do not have the choices of going to which hospital do you want to pick on this street. You got one, And so I said, I think you're wrong. I think you have everything backwards. We need it here more than some of these big cities. So it worked, and a lot of people became involved in getting this thing going full time, and I remember it well.
So, but you were part of the original startup of Dumas Emergency Medical Service.
As a full-time service? Yes. And the way that happened, we had become these advanced EMTs, and our call volume was picking up. The city had actually hired someone to run the ambulance service. So we had one full-time employee, Miss Irma, and she ran the service. She took care of the scheduling and the billing. We were still volunteers, taking call at night. I was. And but we were getting busy. And so as advanced EMTs, the Department of Health made a rule that in January of 1997, all advanced services would either have to be full-time or they would have to go back to a basic service. And so you never want to go backwards. So the mayor, Clay Olner at the time, he said, we're not going backwards. We're going forward. And so we're going to be full-time full-time EMS. Well, by then, Mr. Bill had went and become a paramedic. Gary Gill had as well, and so had I. And we decided, we told the mayor, we said, look, if we're going to have to go full-time, let's do this right. Let's be paramedics. So in 96, a group of us led by Irma started working on protocols, and I was now working full-time as a paramedic over in Monticello, and my career, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we started working on protocols and how this would work, the logistics, the money, and the mayor and Irma ran with it, and they took care of it, and I let my employer know what I was doing, and she was real gracious, Sherry Carson over in Monticello, to help me. She knew I was going to Dumas to start a service, or to help start a service, to be part of it, and instead of her thinking she's going to lose an employee, she helped us, and she helped us. Here's what you're going to need to do. Here's how you're going to need to do your protocol, stuff like that. So January 1, 1997, midnight, we began officially as a full-time service, and I punched the clock. Wow. First night. Yep.
So, what year was that?
1997.
So before 97, Dumas didn't have ambulance.
Volunteer ambulance. We had a volunteer service. Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say because I was around 7 when I got ran over by a car.
Yep. We had a volunteer service.
They put me in the back of my auntie Chevy Caprice. For real.
It's probably a smoother ride, but yeah, we had a service.
Ride too.
But that's right. But back then we had an 8-minute response time. So when you called an ambulance, I got 8 minutes to get there because I'm a volunteer. They know I got to get off work and all this stuff. And when we became full-time, that response time was cut to 2 minutes. So obviously you have to be full-time. You have to be living there and ready to go. And it still is that way today, a 2-minute response time, day or night. And but I remember when I was at Lusby's, I was so green that I had no idea what a full-time ambulance service was all about. And I got my feet wet really quick because it got crazy up there. And I remember, and I got to tell this story, and but my supervisor said, all right, today's the day you drive. You're driving today, because I had been riding as a third rider, a trainee, and I was a EMT. So she said, go get in the ambulance, and we're doing a little transfer. No big emergency. Said, I'll be there in a minute. So I'm sitting in the truck waiting on my partner, and I've got it all cranked up, got my seatbelt on, and Mr. EMT here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And I hear this train horn, and it's so loud, it's just killing my ears. And there's not a train within a mile of where I'm sitting. And I thought, what in the world is that noise? And it was just devastating. And I'm sitting there going, I can't stand this much longer. And my partner gets in. She sits down, and she said, all right, we're going to take a left up here and get your foot off that button, please. Little did I know there was a little button down there.
Dog.
I was sitting there with my Yeah.
Dang.
I was just sitting there, Mr. EMT, with a foot on that big air horn, buddy, and I'm sitting there fussing about it, and I'm doing it. So that was how green I was. It was, and I got to tell people, hey, I'm a little bit smarter than that now. I know what all the buttons do. So, but that was, it was such a learning experience, and. But I was able to work at Pine Bluff, went to paramedic school, and a couple of years I was done with that and got a full-time job over in Monticello as a paramedic, worked there for about a year and a half while we were working on getting Dumas up and running. And I got to come home as a full-time paramedic. And my dream, some people say, well, you didn't dream very big. Well, I think I did. I knew because it was so real back when I was an EMT and nobody ever considered, I didn't know what a paramedic was. And no one ever considered Dumas having a full-time paramedic service, yet I was standing there with a paramedic patch on my shoulder, and I was a full-time Dumas EMS employee. And that meant a lot to me that people never realized that dream came to be, and I always knew that I was where I was supposed to be. That's why I never left Dumas. The industry I'm in, the opportunities to leave and go to other cities was there every day. We were being recruited constantly because this industry in Arkansas was growing so fast that these bigger cities needed paramedics. And I never considered it because I knew my dream was to be at home. I knew I was where I was supposed to be, and I was good with that. And so obviously being at home career-wise, I had a lot of community contact, and I wanted to make my community better, so the volunteer part was easy, and it was secondary, and raising kids in this community, I wanted the best I could for them, so I had no problem and being a volunteer and helping out around the city, and it's been an honor.
You touched on the reaction time that you have. So this was in the 90s. Did you have cell phones, or would they call your job, or scanners?
It's a good question. Actually, we had little beepers we wore on our belt. But now when we went full time, we were at the service, so we had radios. So we had to stay with our partner. If I wanted to go up here to the grocery store to grab something for lunch, I had to go with my partner in my ambulance. So if we did get a call, we could still make our 2-minute response time. But yeah, we had radios. Even back in the 80s when I was a volunteer, we had radios. They were about the size of your mixer, and you strap them bad boys onto your belt.
No.
And the police department would call you on that radio. And now I'm 19 years old, and I'm an EMT, and I'm carrying a radio. I was Mr. EMS. Oh yeah, probably. But hey, I didn't mind, and it weighed almost as much as I did. But but now the communications. But yeah, when we were full-time, we would carry radios, and we would be dispatched, they still are, through the City of Dumas Police Department. And the 911 service goes to the 911 county hub and then goes to Dumas. If you need a Dumas ambulance, it's enhanced, so they know where the call's coming from. So even if you forget to tell them you need what you need an ambulance for, we still know where to go. So those kind of advancements, you have to be trained on that kind of stuff as well. So, but yeah, we always had radios, and they got smaller, thank goodness, as technology advanced.
And so the another thing is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but actually I'll ask you, how many trauma centers are there in Arkansas?
Okay, that's a very good question. The Arkansas Department of Health is still in the process of setting up these trauma centers, and they're tiered. We have 2 level 1 trauma centers in our region, and that is Little Rock UAMS and Arkansas Children's. Now, I believe over in Fort Smith and then Memphis, the Med is in the Arkansas trauma system as well. Level 2, there's quite a few more. Jefferson used to be a level 2. They provide certain services that are advanced, some surgical services and all. And then your tier 3 or your level 3 trauma centers are pretty basic. They have an ER doc on call at all times. And then you have the level 4. Most other hospitals like Delta Memorial, McGee, and Lake Village Hospital are level 4 trauma centers. Unfortunately, Dumas dropped out of the trauma program, and I hate that. I think it's people just didn't know exactly what it was all about and the benefits of being in a trauma system.
To the community also.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they get back in the trauma system. But there's level 1 as far as the big ones. It's UAMS and then Arkansas Children's up in Little Rock, and then the Med over in Memphis.
And I ask that question because you'll see like the ambulance, like if an injury occur here, and people would be like, why didn't they take them to Delta Memorial?
Right.
And depending on that injury, you have to take them to a certain location or such.
There's a dashboard at the Department of Health, and we have communication in our ambulance. So if I work a car wreck and I have injuries that meet criteria that we've been pre-trained on for trauma surgery, then I will call the dashboard, and the state dashboard will say, okay, here's your hospitals that have available surgery for what your patient has. For example, if it's a head injury, Jefferson's not going to be able to handle that. It's going to have to go to UAMS, so we're probably going to call a helicopter or take them local to Dumas, get them stabilized, because that's a long ride in an ambulance with a head bleed. But if it's like a multiple lower bone fractures, hip fractures, or something like that, we'll call the trauma system. They'll say, okay, Jefferson is open today for ortho, so you can go to Jefferson, and we'll make that decision and with the trauma system. Now, we do have criteria, so if there's another issue like they're bleeding out or have an airway issue we can't control, we will go to the local ER just to have more hands on the patient. But, yeah, there's reasons we don't go to the local hospital, and it's nothing personal against the hospital at all. It's we're meeting the trauma criteria, and we get our each day these hospitals will update their dashboard. So like tomorrow or today, Jefferson their trauma surgeon may be out of town, so their dashboard will say they're closed to ortho trauma. So if you got broken bones, we can't handle it today. So then the EMS crew is going to have to make a decision. Does this person need to fly from the scene? Can we go to Delta Memorial? How do we need to handle this? And so you make your decision in the back of the truck. Now, they always leave the paramedics the option of making their own decision. I've had situations where I needed to go to an ortho center, but for whatever reason, I knew that was not a good idea, and I'm going to the local ER and see the local ER doctor. So they leave the paramedics a open door there, but there's a lot of training, a lot of meetings. We do a lot of meetings and lectures on how the trauma system works. And now it's advanced up to cardiac care and stroke care as well. So if you're having a massive heart attack, I'm going to get on the dashboard and find out where my nearest open CT scanner is. And if you're stable enough, we're going straight to the CT scanner. To the cath lab, and so to get the heart cath. So we have a lot of guidance, and it happens quick. We don't waste patient care time getting this information.
So is it safe to say if somebody was injured from like gunshots, like if they was in Little Rock opposed to Dumas, they would have a better chance?
That is exactly why the trauma system is advancing so quickly in the state of Arkansas to keep that from happening. Because the answer a few years ago was absolutely. If you're in Little Rock, you got a whole lot better chance of surviving because you're right there by a trauma surgeon. But and that's what the EMS program in Arkansas is trying to fix. They're trying to say, all right, well, those folks down in Dumas do not have a trauma surgeon. So what's going to be the best we can do for this patient? And they look at statistics, numbers, and response times and transport times to the hospital. And it's been shown that from here to Jefferson, if they have a trauma surgeon on duty, which they almost always do, that most of the patients that we carry from here straight to Jefferson with major injuries like that, between the treatment we provide on scene and during transport, they have a very, very high chance of surviving, or as high as they would anywhere else, depending upon the nature of the injury to start with. So it's gotten a lot better. So if you see an ambulance from Dumas taken straight off to Pine Bluff, there's a reason for that. The paramedics we have the opportunity and the ability and the training to stabilize. For example, if they're shot in the chest, they're filling up with blood internally, we can actually get the blood out of the chest cavity in the ambulance. We can do that. We can do surgical crikes to maintain their airway. So there's a lot of skills that the paramedics do in the back of that ambulance that people don't realize. We're not just ambulance drivers anymore, and we still get called that. There's the ambulance drivers. So hey, that's okay. But it's a lot of training that goes into it, and it's a profession that paramedics are proud to be a part of, and EMTs as well.
So here at the JOAT podcast, we always stress having that mental capacity and always being in a good place and everything. So you started being an EMT at 19 years old, just jump out there in the street.
Oh yeah.
And so that with that alone, you just responding to whatever call it is, doing your job, being a servant. How did that affect you at a young age where you was like, hey, I'm not okay. Yeah, trauma-wise. Like, I'm not okay. I need to go talk to someone. Just give me a break,
One of the biggest career enders in EMS, number one, is physical injury, usually back injuries. Secondly, it is the trauma of the calls you've seen. And I have never, ever asked, and this is maybe unique to me, and my wife says I'm cold, callous, and have no heart. But but I do have I have a thick skin, and I don't dwell on what I've seen. I look at it like this: I hate that person was in that situation, but I'm glad I was there to be able to give them a chance of getting through it. Now that may sound a little cocky, but that's my coping mechanism. But what I've seen in the past, I never talk about it. I never get on the internet or on social media and post anything that says, then I see paramedics doing it all the time, and I'll call them up and get on to them about it. They'll say, well, you just don't know what I've seen, and please, whatever. Right. It's your job. Do your job. If you can't handle it, you need to do something else. That's hardcore words to someone, but if you don't look at it like that, you're not going to make it in this industry. I know people that have washed out, and it's really played on them mentally. They stayed in it too long. They realized it was getting to them. They couldn't handle the trauma, the personal trauma of what they were seeing, and these people injured, and it was getting to them, and they did not get out of the business in time. Some people have to get out of the business. They have to wash out. It's not for them. That doesn't make them weak. That just means this is not for you.
They can't withstand what they could years ago.
And I've always said, I've told everybody I've ever talked to, and some folks in my class as well, sometimes I tell them, the day that I get up and a call bothers me to the point that I can't just let it pass my mind. I mean, I hate to see people sick and injured. Yeah, it bothers me, but when it starts bothering me internally, mentally, not just the normal emotions of seeing, this person injured. Yeah, everybody hates that as well as I do. But when it starts affecting me emotionally, I'm quitting. I'm out. I'll go do something else for a living, because I'm not going to stay in it long enough to put me over the edge, because I've seen some tragedies in EMS because people didn't know the warning signs, and they didn't know who to go talk to, and it's very important. Fortunately, I'm okay, and I have hardened my heart, I guess, and I'm not saying stuff doesn't bother me, but emotionally, it has not bothered me, and I've been doing this a long time. So that just makes it even more clear to me that this is my calling and where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing for a living. And the question always, any class I do, someone's always going to ask me, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And that's easy. I tell them, I said, my pay stub. That's the worst thing I've ever
Dog.
And that is the truth. EMS is underpaid in the state of Arkansas. But anyway, yeah, and people, we do have in EMS industry in Arkansas a way to go and talk to people. And when I teach a CPR class, I tell the lay rescuers out there, like if I go to a church group or something, I tell them, now look, if you ever have to actually do CPR on someone, you need to call your local ambulance service or me or somebody and say, look, I need to talk about what happened. They'll be expecting the call. They know how to handle that, and we'll let you talk through it, what you experienced, how it made you feel. And that kind of stuff's important. Bottling that stuff up inside is it's a bad deal.
Is that something that you implemented?
No. That's statewide. Yeah.
As far as them having to call and they already know.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it when in our business. It kind of came down statewide, but we had always told our folks at work, look, when someone calls you because they say, look, I had to do CPR on someone, even if you weren't involved in the call at all, either listen to them or get them in touch with someone they need to talk to. So, yeah, all of our people are aware that that call may come just out of the blue, and they're not going to say, dude, you got the wrong number. They're going to figure out, I'm not the right person. Let me get you in contact with somebody. So, yeah, EMS is trained to do that as a general rule there, and I don't think we stress it enough with our EMS personnel in the state. But it's very important to have people able to unload. Sometimes you just got to unload on somebody. You got to talk it out. And I tell EMS people all the time, if it's bothering you, better find somebody to talk to. Do not bottle that stuff up inside. It will get to you.
Have you ever had to pick up a family member or a friend?
I have. I'll tell you a story, and this is pretty unique. But I actually had a cardiac arrest patient who was very close to me. It was my father, and so my mom brought him to my workplace one Sunday. I believe it was on a Sunday, and the whole crew was there. And we were watching football and kind of had some downtime. My dad wasn't feeling well, and I kind of nonchalantly reached over and I was going to check his pulse. The football game's on. I said, "What's wrong with you, Daddy?" Well, when I touched him, man, he was cold. He was clammy. Yeah, I couldn't feel his pulse. He said, "Man, I really don't feel good." So I asked my partner, I said, "Go get the cardiac monitor and bring in here." Now, we're in the living room of Dumas EMS, and bring this in here, and let's check my dad's heart rate. And it was amazingly high, up in the 180s, to the point it was not really, his heart wasn't really working right, and he was about to go unconscious. So we sprang into action. I called the hospital, told them I was bringing someone in, code blue. We knew where we were going with this, and that is a term we use for people in cardiac arrest. And but he went downhill, but we were there. We were able to kind of stay a step ahead of his medical issue, and we kind of stayed ahead of the program there, and between us and the hospital, and then getting him to an advanced cardiac hospital. He survived that event and lived for many years after that. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was, now had he passed away during that, I may be telling a different story, and I may not even be in EMS. I can't say, but the fact that outcome was so positive and so personal and so close to home, it just kind of another reassurance that, hey, this is where you're supposed to be. And but yeah, I've had them. You're going to, working in a small town, a lot of acquaintances, family members, friends. You're going to see it happen, and that tries you. It's just like you watch a family member very ill, injured, or even pass away. It hurts, and it hurts in EMS a little more. But you just have to cope with it. You have to find your own way to cope with it. But yeah, it happens.
And you mentioned your mom and dad, and are you the only kid?
I'm the only child. My mother, I guess, decided either we can't do any better or we don't need to try that again. So we got one of them. We don't need two. But yeah, I'm an only child, and my mother's still alive. She still lives alone, and she's in her 80s, very healthy. She's going to come up to my house after a while. She's still out and about.
You bringing her to the fall festival? Yeah,
we're gonna drive by and see what all's going on out at the park. Looking forward to that. And but yeah, my dad passed away a few years ago. But yeah, I am an only child. And
how was you and your dad's relationship?
Oh, it was great. He was a true working man. My dad was a farm laborer, and he worked like crazy. And he worked a lot, and I know it bothered him that he worked daylight to dark all the time. But when we did hunt and fish, he loved to fish, so that's something we have in common. So especially in his later years when he was retired and not having to work, we did a lot of hunting and fishing. He mostly slept on the deer stands. We do a lot of hunting, but he loved to fish, and so we had a great relationship. And boy, I miss that guy every day. And my mom and I still have a very close relationship. I'll go out there every morning for breakfast when I can. And but yeah, we had a good relationship, and it was awesome to see his latter years healthy enough to get out and do things with me and his grandkids as well.
That's awesome. And so you started getting into EMS at the age of 19. And so you knew that, at the age of 19, you didn't know exactly what you wanted to do. You just wanted to work at the time. So how did that carry, because you have your own kids also. So when kids grow up, nowadays they always say, no, you need to go to college. You need to do this. You need to do that. How did that, having that experience of you knowing like, hey, I don't know what I want to do just yet, so I'm not going to force y'all to do anything. How did that?
Right. Well, and I told my kids, I said, look, if you have a dream and it's stuck in your heart and you can't get rid of it, follow it. Go down that road like I did. I said it may not seem feasible. People are going to laugh at you and tell you that is an impossible dream. You shouldn't even be talking that kind of stuff. follow that dream. If it dead ends, then find you something else to do. But I told my kids to do what you felt like you wanted to do. And so my daughter has a passion for people. And so when she got out of college, she became a school teacher, but she went out to Haiti for a few years, and she actually taught school in Haiti. And and then on weekends she would go up into those villages, and we would send flip-flops and just little stuff like that over there to her, and she would pass that stuff out. Wow. But she's always had a passion for people, and especially children. She's still a school teacher to this day. And my son got out of high school, and he was kind of like I was. He really, for a couple of years, he floated around. He went to college. He got into the whole design and drafting business, and working here locally. And lo and behold, he said, "I'm going to EMT school." And I thought, well, that's unusual, but okay, go ahead. And he did. And now my son is a full-time paramedic for LifeNet EMS in Malvern, Arkansas. And he's been a paramedic for a few years now, and he is. He's way more aggressive. He has a larger call volume than I have. He sees a lot of stuff, but I call him a paraguide. A lot of the new paramedics think, they'll tell their patients, well, God couldn't come today, so he sent me, So yeah, you're just a paraguide. But he's in the business, and
I've been like, man, you better save me then.
That's right. But yeah, my son's in the industry, and I couldn't. What can I say? I'm proud of that, and he's doing a really good job as well.
He calls you a lot?
Yeah, oh yeah, we stay in touch, and I usually call him. I said, Zach, tell me how you did that, this certain new technique and all that. So I learned a lot from my kid. That's pretty unique to be able to learn from your kid in the industry that you started in. And but he is he's a good paramedic, and I'm proud of him, proud of my daughter. She's in the people business, teaching school. God bless her, but she loves it.
Teachers just had a rough year.
Oh my goodness, yeah, they have.
They
have.
Rough on
and then my wife's in the daycare business, so somebody asked me, said, "Why?" And she has the daycare at my house, so they say, "Well, why are you always out there in your yard, working in your yard?" I said, "Go in my house, and you'll know why I'm out here in the yard." Kids everywhere. I got to go outside.
Well,
yeah, so. But, and being in Dumas and being a volunteer and coaching baseball, that was just second nature. And we were talking about Doc Mitchell earlier, and Theodore Mitchell, and we coached a lot of baseball together, and our kids grew up together. And but you saw, there was a lot of volunteers, still are. But this festival you're doing, I was involved in our summer festival for many years, and because it was fun. And it was good for the community, and it gave people something to get out and do, and be a part of the community, and maybe get someone else fired up. And maybe your event today is going to say, it's going to get someone to say, you know what, that's an awesome idea. I think I'm going to see if he'll let me add something to that.
Absolutely.
Next thing you know, these things grow. Yeah. And that's what communities like this need. We need growth. We don't need to go backwards, and we need to grow.
And we need leaders.
Absolutely. Got to have good leadership,
people
strong
like
leadership.
Yourself, we need leaders.
Well, I appreciate that. But it's been a great ride here in Dumas, and man, the EMS system here has really progressed, and I was so happy to be a part of that from the beginning up to right now. And I don't work for Dumas at the moment, but still, they're dear to my heart. And you get involved a lot of times in politics and stuff like that, and things just kind of go a different direction. But that kind of stuff happens, and you just take that and you move on with it.
Yeah. And so you started up the very first EMS service here. You are part of that. You helped start that up here. Did you write the policies and procedures here?
Actually, the state of Arkansas has a blanket guideline, and then you can go in there. You have certain things you have to do, and then they give you some options of some meds and some drugs. So with the help of the Monticello Ambulance Service, who had went full-time already, we kind of mirrored them a little bit, and then our EMS director, Irma, would also in touch with the Department of Health and with what she felt our community needed. And so it came together like that. And we did add some things that were unique to Dumas, and but yeah, it was a team effort and to get that done. But the policies still evolve. That policy handbook, I go back and read the old ones, and some of the things we weren't allowed to do then that we can do now. So it's a very progressive, evolving industry. EMS, and it's fun to be a part of. A lot of learning. I mean, I went from writing my runs on a piece of paper to now everything is CAD based. You do everything on a computer. You push a button, it goes to the people that need it. It goes to the hospital. It's all there on the computer. We telemetry some stuff over to the hospital. If you're having a heart attack, I can let the doctor know it before I ever leave the front yard. Wow. And so the technology is one of the biggest challenges, I guess, for EMS, especially dinosaurs like me who came up with everything was hard based. Everything you could see it, but now you're sending stuff over the internet. So we had to keep up with that, and we have to continue to get educated on that as well. So that's a big challenge, but that's part of it, and that's what I like about it. You never stop learning.
And so with the policies and everything, I remember just a couple years ago when the question came up about, well, it wasn't even a question. It was the community stopped seeing Rick Helton with the Dumas EMS services. And I remember seeing a post about the policies and procedures of the transportation, and if ambulance is on call, the other one has to stay within the county and everything. Can you elaborate on that a little more?
I can, and that was an unfortunate situation. I was released from Dumas EMS, and it was very unfortunate. And the reason for it is simple, and don't take this as an arrogant statement, but we at Dumas EMS lived and breathed our industry. And I know there's a lot of things I don't know about. You don't want me setting up your podcast, but I know EMS. Okay, right. That's one thing I know. I was raised in it literally, and some policies and some procedures that were requested for us to follow were not either ethical or legal, or I personally was not going to be a part of them, and I refused, and I drew a line in the sand, and I would not cross it because I was wanting to protect our service, our employees, and the citizens of Dumas. And that was not popular with city leadership, and instead of sitting down and let's talk about this and let me explain to them my reasoning, they took the wrong way out, and they basically released me from Dumas EMS, and that's very unfortunate. The service goes on. Obviously, they don't need me. I'm just another person in EMS, and I was replaced very easily. But the point was, the reasons, after all of that, half of the policies that I stood for, now they found out, well, you have kind of got to do it that way. So it was very unfortunate. And I think it was, you've got to trust your department heads, I believe, and they should have listened a little bit more to what we were saying at Dumas EMS, some of the things that we were trying to tell them because we knew what we were talking about. But the city leadership felt the need to kind of turn their back on me. I felt like, I took it personal. And
I would have taken it personal.
Yeah, because my entire, now you think about this, my entire professional career, literally from a snotty-nosed kid to 3 years from retirement, had been dedicated to this city. And we had this city government decided, you know what, we'll just go another way, another route. And they did it at Christmas. Man, it was just a tragedy. I took it very personal, still do. I think it was a big mistake. And I worry about our ambulance service here. I hope that they don't get led down a path that they don't need to go down, but they've got
due to politics.
Yeah, due to politics. That's the thing, EMS and politics should not mix. Now this is something I want to say. I really think that public service, as far as fire and EMS and police, I think none of that should be privately owned, except now I'm starting to have a different way of thinking about EMS, because politics and EMS don't mix very well, because a lot of times the leaders don't understand some of the policies and some of the procedures that EMS is doing, and some of the decisions they make, and some of the transfers that they let another service take, and why they do that. And they don't understand, and they don't want to listen. But these private services, and I work for a private service now, they know how the policy works, and so it's pretty seamless on how it operates. So the industry is beginning to kind of move into the private aspect of these private services, and so far, policy-wise, that kind of clears a lot of things up. You don't have elected officials making decisions that they shouldn't be making,
and it doesn't allow it doesn't allow gray area.
That's right.
It's here.
That's
right.
right.
It's written. This is what other people have adopted. This is the protocol. It's here.
That's right.
Was that a verbal policy, or was that a written policy that they were trying to implement?
Oh no, it's not even a policy. This is the state. The state mandates that we have a 2-minute response time, and we always have an ambulance available to cover the emergencies in Dumas. So
that's the county, not just Dumas.
Well, our service area, which
service
is
area.
half of the county. McGee covers the other half.
Okay.
But the thing is, and this is important for people to know, that we have 2 full-time ambulances here in Dumas. So if we have a transfer to Little Rock, that other ambulance has to stay in this town to cover emergencies
until the other one gets.
If another transfer comes in during that time, we have services from around the area we call on, and we say, look, we've got a second transfer. Do you have an ambulance available? Yeah, we're having a slow day. We'll come over and do your transfer for you. That is common sense, and that is Dumas EMS policy. It's called a backfill agreement, and we do the same thing. If McGee's busy, we're not. We'll run down there and do a transfer for him. And but some of the city leaders couldn't understand that. And why don't you just take that other ambulance and go to Little Rock? Well, now there's no emergency service coverage in the city of Dumas, and that's illegal. You cannot do that and maintain your license. And that's how simple that policy was, and how it is, and it still remains today, because that is the right way to do things.
And you were in this. This is what year were you in Dumas Emergency Medical Services when this happened? Was that year?
This was December of last year. This was in December of this.
So how many years of service was that for you?
Oh, 25 full-time. Now, full-time. 40 years as an EMT in the city of Dumas. 40 years, yeah, 40 years of my professional career. And the only reason it wasn't 40 years full-time is because we didn't have a full-time service.
Volunteer service.
Yeah, but the day it became full-time, I jumped on board at midnight that night.
So me being me thinking, if I'm an elected official and I have a question about anything that's medical related, I go to the paramedic that's here.
It's been the policy in the past, and it's worked well. It's always worked well, and that's the way it's been in the past. And the directors, and I was EMS director at that time, by the way, as Irma had retired. But in the past, many questions came up with city government about why are y'all doing that? And our director would go over and sit down and say, well, here's why we do that. And it may not be the best way to do it, but this is the way it has to be done now, because it's policy and it's law, and it's best for the community. And they say, okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. Unfortunately, you get some leadership where that you can't.
They just don't care.
Yeah, you just don't. Yeah. You don't get that ability to reason things through, and so it's very unfortunate. And people, I've had some folks say, well, maybe your calling was wrong. I said, no. 40 years of my life was spent here trying to make things better for myself and my community. I have no regrets. Still live in Dumas. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be here for a while. I'm heading on to my house, so I'm not going anywhere. This is still my community. Now, I did tell, when this happened, I told some of the boards that I was on, the Chamber of Commerce and a couple more, I said, look, I'm going to take 6 months. This was back in January of this year. I said, I'm going to take 6 months. I'm not coming to any meetings. I'm not going to be involved in any projects. I'm taking 6 months off. I'm going to work. I have another job. I had a job within 3 hours of this termination.
As a paramedic.
As a paramedic. And because I had made a lot of friends in this industry, and I had, they found out, contacted me. So financially and job-wise, I never, it was never a stumbling block or anything like that. But I told them, I said, I'm going to take 6 months off, and I'm not doing anything for the community. I'm going to work and come home. And they understood. But I've received hundreds. At least hundreds, maybe even 1,000 phone calls, emails, text over the past year, bringing this up and telling them how much they hate that I'm not here. I was humbled by that, but that, I decided, the city, the people who is the city, leaders come and go. The city never done anything wrong to me, and they support me, so I'm staying right here in Dumas. I'm getting back involved, and I'm going to stick it out. I love this town. I'm staying with it. Someone even said, "Oh, you're still going to do the football? You're still going to be the voice of the Bobcats?" I said, "Absolutely. The city has supported me, and I'm throwing my support right back at them."
That's awesome. And you spoke about the Bobcat Radio.
Yeah, that's even Bobcat Radio was it spun off of my EMS career, and I was the cat medic for Coach Boney back in the day. I was a trainer on the sideline, and I helped Clay Owner do some taping.
You taught Clay Owner how to tape?
No, he taught me. Let me tell you something. That dude could smoke a cigarette, make a phone call, drink a Coke, tape an ankle all at the same time.
Definitely.
Am I wrong? I'm telling you.
You're telling the truth.
It was bad news.
And get the sideline fired up.
Oh, absolutely.
I used to ride with Clay on it because I was the water boy when I was young. So on Friday nights, I'm in the van with Clay on in the cleaning van.
Hey, that's right. What would he say? 55, stay alive. 98, don't be late. And he meant it too.
For real, yeah.
But yeah, I was a sideline medic, and then when Coach Boney became the athletic director and we got a new head coach, he went a different route. So for the first time in my life, I'm sitting in the stands on a Friday night football game, twiddling my thumbs, going, I don't like being I want to be doing something. Well, my buddy Dwight Lambert, who was doing radio, he sent someone down there to get my attention. And I looked up and he said, "Come up here." So I go up there and he said, "Man, I need a color man to do radio." I said, "What is that?" He said, "Just put those headphones on and say something." And so I sat through a whole football game basically and watched the game, and every now and then I may say something, but I became his color man and the commentary for Dwight Lambert for many years. And then he retired from the radio business. He got really business with his career as well. And so I became the voice of the Bobcats. And that's been probably 15 years ago or more. And man, that's been so much fun. I love it. And I've learned a lot, made a lot of stupid mistakes, but it's been a very fun ride to follow this football team, and I'm happy to do it, and I hope I get to keep on doing it. And somewhere down the line, I guess I caught the need to run my mouth, so I enjoy being the voice of the Bobcats.
The drummer club class paid off.
Hey, that C, man. that C got me where I'm at today. Yeah, man. Hey, kids out there, if you get that C in that tough class, embrace it. It may get you where you want to be someday.
Definitely.
Yeah, pretty much. In closing, P, do you have anything else you like to ask Mr. Rick?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Yeah, and here personally at the Joke Podcast, we tell people all the time that this is not about us at all. There's someone watching right now that's going to hear this story, and they're going to be inspired to be an EMS or approach you in public, just ask you, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I heard you say this up on the podcast. How can I get started up on this? Or, so it's not about us at all. It's always about reaching as we refer to them, the tradesmen out there, reaching the audience and, shedding light on your situation and just sharing the experience and everything. But Hometown Hero segment number 2 with Mr. Rick Helton. Mr. Rick Helton, you got anything else you'd like to say?
One more thing real quick. First of all, man, I appreciate what you guys do here, both with this podcast and out in the community. I know how it is to be a community volunteer, and sometimes you get a little overwhelmed and overworked, but people appreciate it and people know what you're doing. Secondly, I just want to say, chase your dreams and find what you want to do, and remember that you work so you can live. You don't live just to work, and people get that backwards. But if you can find the career that you're called to do, and I believe you'll be where you need to be. And it may take you a couple of tries to find that career, but go with your heart. And you hear it all the time: chase your dreams. Man, that's true. So listen to your heart and study hard and try to get a B in drama.
Well, here it is. It's a wrap. Hometown Hero segment 2 with Mr. Rick Helton.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Helton.
Been awesome. Thank you.
All right, it's a wrap.